second half when the students are there. No.
Okay. Robert, if you like, I'll record it and you can forward it to other people later if you like.
Oh, okay, but maybe we need just confirmation. We had said we were going to start at 1:15, so let's just wait for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Then we can begin.
I think we can proceed now. We can start. Those who are supposed to join, I think they have joined. We can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before maybe we begin everything, just want to give a background and probably just ask Dr. Flemings maybe to just give to just address us maybe for a minute or so, welcome remarks, maybe before Professor Rich begins. So we're initially supposed to have this session in person with Professors Rich Rice and Professors Kanika Batra from Texas Tech University. Unfortunately, I think they made a hiccup with their flights, so they had to cancel and then they had to revert. We are glad that even in such a scenario, you allowed us to proceed and make this presentation online. We don't take this for granted. So without wasting much time, I am Robert Chiwamba. I knew the two professors when I was at Texas Tech University for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and we have collaborated on a number of initiatives, and I thought that their insights would help us. That's why I approached Dr. Flemings, and we are glad that you allowed us to make this presentation. May I ask you maybe to just give us a short welcoming remarks before Professor Rice continue with his presentation. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ngwira is not feeling well, but of course he's around. Maybe he has got a problem with his voice. I just stand in on just say something on his behalf. Let me say that when we received this message that we're going to be taken through the grant writing as well as our proposed writing, we're very happy, and we actually welcome this idea, and we thank you so much for considering us to learn something on grant writing as well as proposed writing. I don't think we have got so many words. We just want to welcome you, and of course, we are eager to learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Then Professor Rice, you may take it from there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for the introductions and for allowing us to give a couple of talks today. We wish we were there in person. We actually wrote a grant that was funded to come to Malawi and hang out with you guys, but unfortunately our plane had some mechanical issues, so we can't be there. But we're hoping to extend this talk into ongoing sustained partnership with you, certainly with grant writing. If we can help review proposals, we would love to do that or work collaboratively with you. Grants are very important for lecturers because what we do in the academy is often not part of social impact, part of the community that we want to serve. And so grant writing is an opportunity to do that. And one of the things I talk about a lot is how to integrate teaching, research, service with grant writing so that we can maximize our time. It takes a lot of time to write a grant. And if you're unsuccessful in getting that grant, it's very frustrating. So it's important to know, to think about from the start how to get something out of the grant writing effort, even if you don't get the grant. For example, if you are involving a lot of strategic planning in the project of partnering with other agencies, that partnership can continue to develop with or without funding. Just like we are here today, an obstacle, our plane got in the way, but we are still here today working with you in different ways. Proposals are very much unlike academic writing that usually has a main claim or a thesis. And in the next hour, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, as well as dissertation writing. And academic writing usually has a claim where you present an idea and then you have proof that supports that idea. Grant writing is fundamentally different in that it really says we're going to accomplish something from the get-go. From the start of the proposal, it says the idea doesn't need proof in the same way. It needs proof in a different way. And we'll talk about that, particularly with ethos. Ethos is, in academic writing, an appeal to authority. That's where you use different quotations. Ethos with grant writing is more about credibility and how you suggest that you are the right person to carry out the solution to the problem. Oftentimes you'll use the phrase RFP. That stands for request for proposals. That's just another way of saying application. So you'll see RFP a lot. I know people in the room are probably fairly familiar with grant writing already. And so you may have seen this before. The notion of rhetoric is really significant with both academic and grant writing. Rhetoric is the art of persuasion. And you have a lot of different ways to present your argument that you are the best person to carry out a solution to a problem. And in particular, these different kinds of appeals to authority. The first is going to be the most significant, which is credibility or authority. Using emotion is sometimes useful, especially if you connect it with logic. So you could give an example that's an emotional appeal, say a situation that is happening in society, but then you can back it up with numbers that say this situation is replicated in a large number of ways. So it provides more impact and significance with what you're doing. And then specifically with grant writing, somewhat with academic writing, but even much more with any sort of proposal, an appeal to timeliness is important. It's often the case that you're competing against a large number of people. If you're a reviewer and you get, say, 100 proposals and 30 of them are really good, equally good, the one that is most timely and critical is probably going to win. And so this is an important part of your proposal is the timeliness and what happens if it's not funded. How many people are impacted? Pointing that out is important. So we'll talk a little bit about rhetoric today. I want to talk about AI as well. There are different ways to use AI ethically and effectively in our writing. AI cannot write a grant proposal for you. It will not win if you use AI only to write your proposal. It won't win because it won't be written well. It'll have gaps. It will not have a good local style to it that picks up on your need and matches the mission of the funder very well. But it can be really good at finding gaps and also in understanding from a reviewer's perspective what is missing and how it's being read and assessed. So we'll talk a little bit about AI use in grant writing as well. So ultimately, grants are useful for creating knowledge, for building different research groups, for training. And I think training is really significant with SMEs and different kinds of work that everybody in this room is doing, and solving different kinds of problems. Ultimately, a grant solves a problem. Robert was on a Mandela Washington Fellowship program. One problem is, sustained leadership training is important and difficult to sometimes find. And so Robert applied for this opportunity, got it, came to Texas Tech, where we were happy to work with him in different ways. And Robert was able to spend 6 weeks learning different kinds of leadership training ideas to apply back in Malawi. So thinking through innovation and entrepreneurship funding is particularly important with business. Student-led projects, and as lecturers, we can develop student-led projects that maybe receive some funding or support. Could be internal support from MUBAS, or it could be external support in some way. Startup and commercialization grants is very, very frequent. For example, developing lab space, getting some industry partnerships to purchase some technology or software that could be used. Applied research, and in searching through the staff research repository, you see a ton of different publications that are coming out of your program, particularly with data approaches and agricultural work in Kenya and in Malawi. Community impact grants, those could be local or regional, industry partnerships, societal impact. You guys do have access to a fabulous resource that the University of Malawi has. And because a lot of the resources that are aggregated there are useful for international research as well. And so they aren't necessarily University of Malawi specific. And we'll share that URL with you. It's funding.unima.ac.mu or MW. And this is maybe a website you want to take a photo of. It's a fabulous website and useful for students as well. And it's primarily for University of Malawi's faculty and students, but it's accessible to the public and invaluable, I think, to you. It provides also funding profiles, funder profiles, which tells you a little bit about the agencies that are offering different funds. That can become very valuable when you're trying to determine what the best match is between your goals and objectives and those of funders. Because the stronger the match, the more likely it is that you'll get that grant. So doing that kind of research is important. It's a really useful website. So if you have time, I would encourage you to check that out. There are 6 stages to writing proposals, and it's really not until like the 5th stage where you actually do a lot of the writing. A lot of people want to start with that, but it's much better if you start by spending time thinking about the problem. You identify a problem, you think through the solution to the problem and how you are best suited and your team is best suited to solve that problem. That's really significant because that's a huge difference between your competitor who might have a different solution to the same problem. And your credibility is based in part on how well you demonstrate that you are uniquely situated to solve the problem. You want to figure out that match, figure out if the solution benefits both your organization and the research sponsor. the funder. And so you have to think very critically about how the solution will do that, both in the short term and in the long term. Long term, we would call sustainability. So how your solution is sustained even after the funding ends or runs out, how the solution can continue. Dr. Batra and I want to continue our relationship with you to try to develop opportunities for people. And that's a sustained model that we hope to engage in. Then you write the proposal. Oftentimes this takes a few times. You write the proposal, maybe it doesn't get funded, but you revise it and you resubmit it. Or you revise it and you find another funder and resubmit it there as well. And so sometimes it takes a few times. Unfortunately, it could be maybe a 10% acceptance rate. The program Robert got into with Mandela Washington is extraordinarily competitive, maybe 5% acceptance rate. And he wrote a very good proposal and it got accepted. Sometimes such proposals have 2 rounds of reviewers, one that is local and one that is international, and it makes it even more challenging. After you get a grant, then you have to, of course, receive the funding, apply that funding, and report about it. And so reporting becomes really critical, and designing how you're going to report from the get-go becomes part of your solution. Because it's part of the persuasion of convincing your reviewers that you are in a good position to solve a problem. All right, so these are the 6 stages. If you have questions about any of these stages, go ahead and pop them into the chat. I'll keep that open as well, and happy to go over something as we go. But I'll continue. I do want to use the chat to have you express problems as lecturers that you would like to solve or that you're working to solve, and possible solutions. And I have a few examples of those to share with you, but we'll use the chat for that. Now, there are specific agencies that you might want to look for that I have found for you, this is the URL. I'll type it in the chat here. I'll share more of these as well, and I'll let you take a photo of these so that you have it. But these are specific agencies, and you can search for them online. You can use a tool and find any of these different kinds of specific agencies that I think would fund types of problems that you are looking at. In the chat, it says, when writing, do you need local and international collaborators? Is there a forum that we might use to find such collaborators? I would recommend that Mabas creates such a forum. We've done that at Texas Tech in different ways. We have a tool that we use for international research and for regional and local research to find international collaborators. There are many different kinds of forms for that, and they are usually industry specific. I recommend getting on email lists. That's the best way to do it, I think. And so find some business, tools, organizations. You could look to your academic conferences, for example. Those are helpful. One useful call that we like to use is the Penn State archive, and you can find that. Kanika, maybe you can put that into the chat. The Penn State archive often lists calls for proposals for projects, particularly writing projects and conference projects. So there are a lot of different types. But certainly, starting locally, I mean, that could be lecturers that that are working on things. I like to look at, who has published different ideas. There's a link in the chat of who has published on different kinds of projects in your program, and then perhaps finding partners that way as well. Dr. Batra has shared the call for papers. That is a common place to look. But these are specific agencies. You can also, find opportunities here. These will share keywords, for instance. So like if you went to the Malawi Government Innovation Research Programs, you can find that there are different kinds of keywords you can search for. Now, those keywords you could also use to find partners. So you could use, say, an AI tool to look for partners who do those kinds of research using the keywords within your local area or subject discipline specific subject matter. So that could be a good strategy. We like to do that with CVs as well, kind of doing queries on curriculum vitas. In your program, I think I spelled that wrong, sorry. Business, ICT, engineering, applied sciences, entrepreneurship. These are keywords that I would look at, and all of them can attract different kinds of funding proposals. All right, so it's at this point I'd like you to pop into the chat and maybe include a problem and possible solution to that problem that you have been working on or want to work on. Say a problem in getting youth to exercise, or both physically but also academically. Or, there's a problem that people have limited digital business skills. Their skills with computers are limited. Or, maybe there's a problem with subject matter experts having a low amount of productivity, and you want to find ways to train them to develop greater productivity. So take a few minutes. I'm going to keep talking because we're a little bit low on time. But please put into the chat a problem that you would like to work on or are already working on, and if you have it, a possible solution. I mentioned that I would share a few other useful websites to look at for RFPs, for requests for proposals or applications, and here are some that are going to be very useful to you. The first is the one that I mentioned that's hosted by the University of Malawi. That's quite good, and I think you guys have access to it in ways that would be useful. If you want to work with an NGO, I'd recommend African NGOs. There's another one called AfriGrant, Gobo Signal, and a third one and a final one on NGOs there as well. All of these will list new requests for proposals. Many times they are deadlines are annual. They will have keywords associated with them. All right, and I have several other private foundations that I list here. These are individual funder databases that may not have as much information through the URLs that are listed there. For example, you could take a look at NCST for Malawi, or the African Academy of Sciences, the African Research Universities Alliance. These are all private foundations. Erasmus Plus is if you want to work with Europe, a European partner. So these are some types of areas that could be helpful. All right. Do you have any questions? You can use audio if you like, unmute, or use the chat. Any questions about these tools? If you haven't already, this is a good time to take out your phone and take a photo of what's on the screen.
Hi. So thank you for that presentation. I only see the URLs for like UPenn and UNIMA. Did you put the other ones there on there as well? The ones you've just talked about just now.
I have not. I can certainly put those in there.
Please do.
Yep. You can copy and paste them out of the chat. Yeah, these are very useful, but remember my list here of the 6 stages. It is kind of a trap to spend a lot of time going through those websites first. It's better really to understand what the problem is that you want to solve, because many times we spend a lot of time writing a proposal and it's not funded, and then you get frustrated with the act of writing proposals because you think, look, I've wasted too much time. So you have to really think about how to integrate your solution to your other work as well, right? If you're including some literature review, for example, in the proposal that you're writing, well, why not write an article as well that also uses that literature review a little bit, right? So you can get a publication out of the proposal that you're writing, even if you're not funded. So the more time you spend on these things before you get to actually writing the proposal and searching these websites is better. So you'll be more productive with your work as a lecturer if you do that. Okay, happy to take any other questions that you might have, either here or with audio or inside of the chat. All right, so I spoke about ethos, and ethos often means authority. And in the space of grant writing, it really means credibility. And credibility can be demonstrated in a variety of ways. Here are some examples for both students and lecturers. I'll focus on the ones for lecturers. Certainly the publications that you have, oftentimes you include a CV, an abbreviated CV of some sort. So thinking strategically about the titles of your publications and your presentations that go into your CV, maybe that use certain keywords because later you want to write a grant that supports something specific. And so having titles in your CV that will demonstrate that credibility because of the title itself is helpful. The students that you've worked at, if you're going to produce a grant that supports a student-led program, demonstrating that you have successfully supervised students could be useful. Industry collaborations, and not just a list of collaborations, but sustained collaborations that you've had over time is very helpful to build your credibility. And of course, previous grants. The easiest kind of grant to find is a travel grant. This supports your work, maybe going to give a presentation at a conference. If you have some of those or can get those, put them in because you can build on those for things that are more competitive and more challenging to get beyond that. So these are some ways to build your ethos and demonstrate capacity. Who you partner with is really important as well. So you can you can partner with an NGO that has been doing a certain kind of project for years, or you can partner with faculty there who have more experience than you do, and you can rely on some of their experience for some of the capacity or credibility that you're building. Think about this from the perspective of reviewers, from people who are going to take a look at your article or your grant proposal, looking at whether it's really that significant, right? If I'm looking at, say, 30 different proposals, the one that is most important, and maybe that addresses an ongoing national challenge that Malawi has, is going to be more important, right? So therefore, it's more likely going to get funded. Novelty is an interesting kind of creature. You want something that is a new approach, but also has likelihood that it will be achievable, right? So it could be a new way to achieve something, but you have to indicate ways in which it has already been used so that you can demonstrate its likelihood that it will work. One way to do that is to look at this from a different setting. Okay, so maybe in South Africa, they are addressing a problem in a certain way that maybe Malawians can adopt and provide it in a new setting, the setting of Zamba or another location in Malawi. So thinking about that, that would make it novel because it's never been used there, but it's also proven in a different location. So it's a good likelihood that it'll work. Is it feasible? Which means, is it likely that given the money that is going to take to carry this out, is it likely that you can even do this project? That's something that's going through the reviewer's mind. Patricia has pointed out in the chat that she's noted that most prestigious grants and scholarships preferred candidate who has the aspect of community involvement. Yeah, I would agree. And one of the reasons is because community involvement has a greater impact factor. Okay, if you help a community, you're helping maybe 50 people or more in the community. So the return on investment that a funder is making is great. Right? They're giving you some money and you're saying, I'm going to carry out this project and it's going to affect at least, say, 50 people in the community. Now, those 50 people are going to have skills that they can apply and impact other people, right? So it has a sustainability, a large impact factor. So community projects do that very well. I recommend too looking up what's called community engagement, Patricia. And community engagement, there's a body of literature on that talks about how to integrate community-based grant writing work with your scholarship, right? And so in so doing, you're making a really good connection between the goals and objectives of your university and an applied way to affect the community. Now, another benefit of that reviewers will see is that you have the backing of your university in some way. So say, you need a space, like the space for this workshop today. If the goals and objectives of your university align with the project that you have in the community, it's natural to assume from a funder's perspective that space will not be a problem because the university believes in what you are doing, right? Very, very specifically. So making that alignment is usually pretty helpful. That's a good way to integrate it. So investor capability is important, and of course, tapping into 2063 is really helpful. There's community engagement in this vision. That's a central vision component to Malawi Vision 2063. Finding the right institutional support. I would always get a letter from the vice chancellor or from a provost or dean, who you include in your team. Oftentimes we will collect data, but we don't have data experts on our team. That's usually a sign that a funder will look at that and say, well, yeah, you have all this measurement, but do you know how to do that? It's really difficult to do statistical analysis, for example, and not everybody has that skill. So making sure that you have the right people on your team is important, especially for these more prestigious ones. Budget justification. I want to mention that, budgets are rhetorical. They're persuasive. So it's not just money that you're providing. It is support that you're providing through a budget. So for instance, imagine if you can quantify some of the support that your university is providing. Say that could be human support or it could be resource support. So I'm asking for money for computers, but we already have 10 laptops that we are dedicating to this program. Now, those laptops have a value, and the value is this. And so we are already contributing. That's called in kind, right? So we are contributing that. So what we're asking for is a certain amount, but we're already going past that because we're contributing to that amount. Right. So that becomes a rhetorical move that you can make within a budget. Deliverables are really important for sustainability and impact. The more you can get here, the better. It must be believable. It must be well structured. But what's going to come out of it? What are the outputs of what you're developing? It could be, continued workshops. It could be classes that are developed. It could be articles, courses, and so on. Larger versions of the program that doesn't require funding in the same way. National relevance, if you are impacting employment, for example, that's a really good strategy, and so on. So these are things that reviewers want and are looking for. All right, so once you have a proposal, I want to suggest two different ways, and one's going to be really familiar to you and one's not so familiar. That are helpful in really making your proposal strong. And you can use AI to do this as well. So once you have a draft of your proposal, you can use what's called SMARTY. SMARTY is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based, inclusive, equitable. Okay, SMARTY. You could take a photo of this if you want. SMARTY is really frequently used in grant writing. Okay, and what you could do is you could say, okay, ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Copilot, here is my proposal draft. Here is the grant application. Apply principles of SMARTY. Am I missing anything in terms of these principles that is not currently in my proposal? Okay, and see what AI tells you. And it might say something like, you're kind of vague. You're not very specific in this place. And reviewers are going to look for something that's specific. You haven't said by when are you going to accomplish certain things, right? That's easy to overlook in a proposal that you're writing. And so AI can help you see what you normally don't see. Or maybe you haven't made your objectives measurable, right? A goal can be very large. I want to increase the discrete skills of SMEs, in this particular area of subject matter experts, right? But how do you know that you've done that? Do you have them perform something? Do they have to demonstrate that? Have you included that in your proposal? Objectives have to be measurable, right? Because you have to have some sort of reporting. So it's really easy to overlook that, to forget to include that in your proposal. Reviewers will not miss it. They will look for that very specifically. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be scored quite as highly. Grant writers, professional grant writers will include this with AI and ask for a score, as a matter of fact. They will say, using SMARTY principles, score this as if you are a reviewer reviewing this application, right? And if you don't get something like, say, a 97%, you're probably not going to win that proposal. So if you get something less, it'll tell you where it's less. So you're getting about a 75% score based on that framework. And you could strengthen it by being more inclusive in the partners that you have in your work, right? And so then you can go back to your proposal and add more on partners. This is a very helpful tool called SMARTY. And I call this reverse engineering, which is, trying to approximate what a reviewer really wants to see after you have written a proposal draft. And it's important to write the draft first. Okay, the second one you're going to be even more familiar with because this is commonly used in business. This is called a SWOT analysis, right? So you've probably used this before. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You can use this with AI. You can say, here's my proposal. Do a SWOT analysis on my proposal given the requirements of this particular RFP. And then you could paste in that RFP. Okay. So it'll tell you what's working really well. And if you meant for it to work in a different way, you could go back and add more information to your proposal. Or here are the limitations of your current proposal. Usually strengths and weaknesses are internal to the proposal, things that you can control. Opportunities and threats are usually external. These are forces beyond your control. Say in the US right now, we are having a lot of problem with funding sources at the government because our government is changing its mind on a lot of things and changing policy very quickly. It's very unfortunate. And so that's a threat that we can't control. That's according to the government, right? But we should make accommodations in our proposal for it. And so these doing a SWOT analysis helps us see ways in which we can begin to make accommodations. There may be opportunities that are beyond our control that we don't know about. 2063 is an incredible opportunity for you. And maybe there are ways to connect to it that you hadn't considered, right? And people want to fund initiatives that relate to 2063. So maybe this doing the SWOT analysis will come up with that. Anyway, I would use these two tools, SMARTY and SWOT, as a way to strengthen the proposal so that it will rank higher when reviewers study it. Because ultimately, the best proposals tell persuasive, evidence-based stories. They identify an important problem. They demonstrate a genuine knowledge gap, an area where you don't know how to fill it, but you intend to try to fill it. You present something that's realistic and that is time-bound and rigorous and shows the capability, the ethos of the team, and justifies in the budget every resource that you're requesting, and explains, and this is sustainability, how the work will create measurable scientific and societal impact so that it can be replicated elsewhere and so that it can grow, right? If you're doing all of these things, you're going to win your proposal. You're going to win that grant. And so these are the components of effective grant writing, I would say. All right, so this is a good place to start to find proposals, and in the chat are 5 others. But I want to, at the time we have remaining, kind of show you a prompt that you could use, and this is something that I will put into the chat as well. Give me just a second here, so that you could copy and paste it if you want. You can paste it out into a Word file so that you have it. Okay, and I'm going to move over to a different screen here and share this chat, share this prompt, and see what we get. Okay, so here I am. I'm using a tool, an AI tool. You can use any tool. I'm a Mabas lecturer in Malawi. I'd like to write a grant to support a new student-led project that supports Malawi Vision 2063 and is in line with the learning objectives of my program in university. This is important to garner different kinds of support over time. What type of problem? And so I'm asking it, this is a brainstorming exercise. I'm asking for different kinds of problems. If I already have a problem, I could relate that. Or if I wanted to, I could say, here are the CVs of 5 different colleagues I have at my school, and I could add those here. I could add them to the query and find problems that overlap in what we have already published, right? So what type of problem, what type of solution could I tackle? Give me the URLs of likely requests for proposals to support the work, and include an assessment, a measurement plan. All right, and let's see what it comes up with. It's taking its time this morning. Okay, yes, I would frame this as a student-led. Okay, so a student-led applied innovation project. These are good keywords that could possibly come up in the match of the funder, right? And the strategic plan that your university has emphasizes these other keywords, right? And so these are very useful things that you could measure. You could try to measure for applied research or community engagement that Patricia is interested in. It also describes the university's mission as advancing knowledge. So this can become part of the language that you hope to achieve, for example. Okay, so we keep going. Strongest recommendation is a Malawi Solutions Lab could be created. The problem, young Malawians are being educated for a changing economy, but many students have limited opportunities to apply their academic knowledge to real community and economic problems before graduation, right? So, so that's the problem statement right there. And then it has 2 sub-problems. Communities and small enterprises have practical problems that could be addressed through relatively inexpensive technology, communication, design, business, and applied solutions. And then university students graduate with theoretical knowledge, but insufficient experience identifying problems, working with communities, so the practical aspects, right? So it's basically saying, let's create sort of internship opportunities and practical applications for students as part of the curriculum and model. This is a good grant problem because you aren't merely saying that students need more skills. You're arguing that there's a gap between higher education, innovation, and Malawi's development needs. And this is something as an outsider, as a US person, I've heard a lot of, that it's very difficult for universities in Africa to create practical solutions for students that they are training, that sometimes they have to be retrained once they get jobs in industry. So this connects directly to your strategic priorities around these things. It also connects to Malawi's 2063's emphasis, which you could bring in and strengthen your work. That's something Robert has experience doing. So here's the title for the project. This could be a potential title. This is sort of the structured process. I would create what's called a Gantt chart out of this. So a Gantt chart, which you're probably familiar with in business as well, is basically a timeline that is a visual representation timeline. And you could have these be phases in your timeline, right? And providing that is very compelling as a reader, as a reviewer, as you go. So you could create a Gantt chart out of that. The important part is that students do the work and that you are the facilitator of that work. These are different themes, and maybe these correspond with some of the expertise that you have. Maybe this is an area that you want to or are publishing on. I know some of you do agriculture and food systems, climate resilience, digital inclusion, small business productivity. Maybe one of these is an area that you focus in on for this project. Okay, here's an even more specific version of this, focused on climate information. We would call it the Student Climate Information Resilience Lab. The great thing about trying to get a grant to develop a research lab is the lab becomes sustained over years at your university, and then you can write other grants out of the lab. You can use it as a space to conduct research, and it's very convincing for reviewers that you have this space. So different kinds of solutions. And now we're getting into ways to measure those solutions. The project becomes a mechanism for implementing Mabas's existing strategic priorities through experiential, student-led innovation. That's something I know that faculty and administrators there would really like to see. So it could support your work professionally. Okay, student learning objectives. Okay, now remember I mentioned that objectives need to be measurable, and these are very specific things that reviewers would look at and say, yeah, I could see how this is measurable. Identify and analyze a real world problem. So you could say, okay, I've taught you how to do this. Now tell me that you can do this and show me how you can do it. And that's a way that students can very specifically measure their growth over time. Okay, you might do pre and post, so give them a questionnaire or survey at the beginning and at the end, see how they have grown in terms of problem solving, teamwork, project management, and so on. All right, so it gives a lot of very helpful information, ideas. You could then say, compose a draft of a short grant need statement for climate and a lab space with experiential learning. And down below, it probably gives me some very specific URLs. These are RFPs that I could go to, and I've mentioned some of these already, specifically for UNDP. Okay, now I would not use this in terms of copying and pasting and using it directly, but it could provide a very useful outline. Convert that to an outline that you could write, and you would probably write it better than AI would. It would probably read better. So I could say convert it to an outline. Here's the outline, and I could then flesh it out. But if I needed an example of what it looked like, there it is. There's the needs statement. Okay, so those are just a few strategies for using AI to help you develop a rudimentary grant proposal that's specific to a particular RFP and your work. I'd recommend also, as you're getting started, doing that CV thing that I mentioned. Let me see if no, it'll take too much time for me to show you. But imagine using an AI tool where you prompt it and say, here are the CVs of 3 of my colleagues and my own CV. Tell me what problems overlap in what we research and identify some potential RFPs that would help us solve those problems. Okay, so now what you're doing is you are asking AI to help you come up with an interdisciplinary team that could come up and produce a proposal together that strengthens your proposal because it would have a greater impact factor. If you write something that is just for you, you can publish it in a couple of places, and you can lead projects that relate to things that you know about. But if you have a team of, say, 3 people, now they can also publish it in different places, and the projects that extend out of it have a wide scope, wider than just you. All of a sudden, your impact is greater. And so therefore, you will look like a more convincing return on investment to the funder because you'll be affecting more people, right? So interdisciplinary proposal writing is very rich in what you can develop. It also helps everybody at your university as they are then turning those things into publication, and including you. And so you're getting a grant, you're getting publication out of it, things that you have to do as part of your job. All right, so that is my time for today. Any questions over what I've showed you? Want me to cover anything else? Any other questions? Was anything unclear in how to do that? Are you doing some of that work already? How many have written a grant before? Edwin has. I know Robert has. And Patricia has. So we've done some of this before. Hopefully some of these approaches will strengthen the continued grant writing that you do. Would anyone like to share one of the proposals that you've done? Could you walk us through it? What was the problem? What was the solution? We would all love to hear it.
Or if you like, you could also sort of drop a line or a sentence on what the proposal was about in chat.
We'd like to continue working with University of Malawi and perhaps you guys on Malawi Reads Better on a project for supporting literacy in Malawi, particularly primary school education. So that's something. We filled our suitcases with books. We have a lot of books, and unfortunately, we couldn't get them there. We were going to donate a couple of hundred books to the cause, but they were quite heavy, our suitcases. But unfortunately, we had to bring them back. Can AI work in reverse? Yeah, absolutely. And that's called flipped prompting, flipped. And AI will work in reverse in that way to check particular CVs could be included. Yeah, absolutely. So you can do a query, right? Find a page on your website that has a list of faculty and their CVs. Or you could say, search for the CVs of lecturers at these different institutions who can work on this particular problem the best. That works pretty well. You could do it nationally as well across Malawi. You can do it through publication. Who has written on this problem and published materials over the last 3 years that would support this problem, and that's a useful strategy as well. There are a couple of tools, free AI tools that are out there that can also push. I find this really helpful. They can push new RFPs to you through email that correspond to CVs. For instance, there's one called Funding Institutional. And Funding Institutional is a tool by Elsevier, so it may not be free for you. But what it does is you upload your CV, and it will read all of the essays that you have published. It'll look at those references, and it'll go read those essays that have been published, and it will find commonalities for problems, for keywords, and it will then go and search for new requests for proposals for applications. And when new ones come out that are a strong likelihood that you would be interested, it will email you a link to it. And that's very, very handy, of course. Patricia says, our proposal was on SBCC and climate adaptation. We focus on disaster-prone areas. Absolutely. That's such a high need for that. And I think, there are topics that, aspects of that can be very strongly measurable, for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to end with this, and we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then Dr. Batra will start up another session. I'm going to end with this. One of the things we do at Texas Tech is we have an office that does the Integrated Scholar Program. Okay, and what it does is it promotes faculty thinking, strategic thinking on integrating everything we do. We do teaching, research, service, and grant writing. Those 4 things: teaching, research, service, grant writing. And what's important is you think about how to integrate those things. So if you can think about writing a grant, say one for SBCC and something for Penn International, something that makes these connections, and then strategize, well, what kind of publication could I get out of it? And how can I get my students involved in it? And can we apply this in a student-led program within a local community or within a regional community? Or maybe I can present it at a conference and provide that level of service to my profession. Can you spend some time strategizing how to integrate this? And one reason is because the chances of you getting a grant are difficult, right? Because it's very competitive, but you're going to spend a lot of time working on it. So how can you get something out of that time? that you're working on it. If you don't do that, you're going to burn out. You're going to stop writing grants because it just takes too much time and you don't have that much time. So, so integrating these things is very helpful. It's also a way to become more productive, to build your CV even faster. And a colleague in the department and I are part of PEN International. So we're working on community-based engagement to produce literacy in primary schools. So that's certainly up my alley. I'm a professor of English. I'm in technical communication, so workplace communication. We were assigned a school, so I think there's already interest on the literacy theme. Absolutely. And I'd encourage you to use AI to develop ideas for that. And if you can ever find, I'll end with this, if you can ever find a grant that would support the mailing, the freight of books from the US to Malawi, let's partner. We have over 50,000 books in our barn. We have a lot of books, and many of them are kids' books. And so we would love to donate those to a project for literacy in Malawi. So if there's a way to do that, let me know. Unfortunately, mailing is very expensive, so because they're very heavy. So I think grant funding to pay for that mailing would be the way to go. All right. If you do have more questions, please email me. If I can help review grant proposals that you're working on, I would love to. I'm about to release a new book on proposal writing called Grant Writing Solutions, and we're building the website this month for it. That'll be the website that will link to different kinds of techniques, particularly AI techniques, but also different templates and different tools that people could use for grant writing. So that's going to be the website URL for that. And we'll have two versions of this book, one that's free and one that will be a little bit more in depth, but will cost some money. So those are going to be available shortly, if that's helpful to you. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, and we'll take Robert, should we take like a little break?
Yes, so thank you so much. I think we can just take a 5 minutes break as the students settle in. But before we go, I would like to thank the lecturers and the whole department as well because of their time, and you as well for imparting them with the knowledge. With the email that you have sent, I think we'll continue working together and collaborating. And those that may have further questions will ask. So for now, I'd like to say thank you so much. I think we're going to collaborate and talk soon. Thank you.